What's going on, everybody? Feder here from 3D Print SOS. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to look at another laser engraver by Atomstack. A couple months ago I checked out this, the Atomstack X7 Pro, and this thing has a workable area of around 400 millimeters by around 410 millimeters. It's definitely a large laser engraver, and the cool thing about this thing is that it has two 5-watt units that make it a combined 10-watt output on the laser, so it's actually really potent. So definitely check out the video that's popping up above me right now where I check out that machine and do a little bit of an initial impressions video. Now the thing with that machine, the X7 Pro, is that it's large, and for someone like me who has very little space down in the basement here and also very little space in my garage, it can get a little bit unwieldy. If you had a designated area for such a thing, it would be perfect, even for smaller projects. But for someone like me, I have to clear an area to put this thing down. I have to get it on the floor in the garage. It can get unwieldy, and it doesn't make it as fun to do laser engraved projects. So that's why Atomstack has this. This is called the P9 M50, and this has a workable area of around 220 by 250. So it's a lot more of the size of about a 3D printer in terms of work area and how that's concerned. So as you guys know, on this channel we do a lot of 3D printing, so I'm familiar with that work area. So a lot of projects just in my head already are in that same space and size. So that's why I want to check this out. And the coolest part that really got me with this machine is it uses the same laser module as its bigger brother, the X7 Pro. So the P9 can actually do the same level of laser engraving and cutting as its big brother in the smaller size. So that to me is definitely worth checking out, especially because you don't pay the full price. So if I pull up the pricing here, at the moment when I'm shooting this video, the X7 Pro is $535, whereas the P9 M50 is $489. So if you don't need the larger space, this is definitely the way to go. And in fact, if you do need the space, the X7 Pro can even go larger than 400. There is an extension kit that you can purchase to make it longer, because it just uses 2020 extrusions for its actual frame. So it's actually very easy to make larger, which is really cool. So that's why I want to check this out. I want to see if this is as potent and as powerful as that machine. So we're going to do some testing. We're going to take it out of the box. We're going to assemble it. We're going to fire up some lasers and see what this thing is all about. All right, let's get started. All right, let's take a look at what comes in the box. Hey, look at that. A box within a box. All right, nice packaging actually. Looks like something you would pick up at a store. Has a nice little handle. All right, so here we have our steel work area. It says giveaway cutting mat. When cutting, place this mat under the object to prevent damage to the tabletop. Please tear off the surface protective film before use. All right. It's actually packaged really similarly to how a 3D printer is packaged. Looks like we have some loose silica gel. Looks like our little silica gel packet has burst open. Yep, it has a little hole here, and I got the little balls all over the place. Not a big deal, I just want to keep them contained to this area. Let me get the box. Alright, I'll be trying to collect them down here. Alright, that might make a little bit of a mess, but here we have the manual. It's in English, Dutch, and French. Alright, plenty of directions. This is the instructions for software, and it looks like it works with Laser Gerbil, which is what I used on the last one. But this time I think we are going to purchase a Lightburn license so we can get the full control over our laser engraver. All right, here we have our little HDMI cable that they use for the screen power cable. Here we have our power supply. Ooh, the silica gel is everywhere. We have our cable that we use to tether to a computer. I like that all of the bags in here are labeled with steps. That's going to make assembling it much easier. step 4 and 5, step 3, non-woven fabric. Interesting. We have a couple little wood pieces that we can engrave, and this little piece of plexi, which you can actually use as a leveling to the laser head. Step 2, some hardware. A couple more little acrylic pieces. Looks like a dry erase marker. I don't quite know what this is for, and if you do, leave me a comment. Let me know, because the other one had this as well. All right, and we have some tools. We have an 8 and 10 millimeter wrench. Nice wrench, actually. A couple Allen keys. We have the SD card in an SD card reader. It's not a marked SD. All right, here we have the actual unit itself. Yep, can confirm, exactly the same. Looks like a little plexi on the top here has a little crack in it, but that's not a big deal. That's just superficial. Everything else looks good. A little cleanup. I feel like I'm in a Tom and Jerry skit where there's marbles everywhere on the floor. I think I just dated myself with the Tom and Jerry thing. All right, here we have an extrusion with a motor. Looks like it's just a standard NEMA. Oh, they're everywhere. I'm going to be finding these things everywhere for the next couple days. Yep, looks like the quality of everything is the same as that X7 Pro, which is really, really nice. Oh, big one. All right, here we have some risers, and this will help you get your machine above different projects. This thing is packaged really well. There's a lot of pieces in here, and they're just they're really well protected with a lot of foam. Very nice so far. All right, here's one of the legs, and the other one should have the motherboard on it. All right, yep, here we go. We have the emergency stop, reset button, power. This is definitely the same exact unit as the previous machine, just mounted in a different spot on a different leg. And that's really good, because it's decent. All right, we have the screen. It looks like it's exactly the same screen. This should have magnets on the back. Yes, it does. And that makes it nice and easy to store away and mount to the motherboard. All right, and this looks like the last piece, the main piece. All right, looks like while I'm assembling it, I'm gonna have to get some of the stuff out of some of these nooks and crannies that I can't get out during this unboxing, but I can definitely hear some inside of there. Oh, there it goes. All right, I think we're silica gel free. All right, and this should be kind of like the X-axis. All right, rolling nice and smooth. Yeah, I can see some silica gel kind of like stuck underneath of there. So yeah, like I said, I'll get all those out. That's not really a big deal. That just happens, you know? All right, but yeah, everything looks really well put together. I like all of the plastics. They're all high quality. This could use a little bit more belt tension, and I'll be sure to check that while I assemble it. Cool. All right, and that's everything from the box. So let me give you a couple shots of everything that comes in this box. There is actually quite a lot packaged in here. Really good packaging. Some of the best that I've seen, just general. You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of the Focus Odin 3D printer that I reviewed a long time ago. Check that out if you haven't seen that one. But it comes in a similar like retail packaging, and it's packaged really tight and well. This reminds me of that, except it's even smaller just because it's a more compact unit. All right, let me show you what this is all about, and then we're going to go ahead and speed through the assembly, and then I'll meet you back here and talk about how that went and my initial impressions with the machine. All right, see you there. Alright everybody, so the P9 is all assembled and it took all of about 15 minutes total, and that's including me realizing that I put in the main panel in the reverse order, taking it all back apart, putting it back together. So yeah, really easy to put together. If you've done a 3D printer before, so this should be an absolute breeze. If you haven't done a 3D printer before and this is one of your first like machines of this nature, super easy, nothing to be intimidated over. To get the motion smooth, it's just like a 3D printer in the sense where wherever there's wheels, there's at least one or two with an eccentric nut. So you just take a wrench and you use the eccentric nut to make sure that that the wheels aren't too loose and are not too tight. And then both of the belts that the whole thing operates on have a tensioner. There's one on the end here, and then on the very bottom, this entire motor moves back. So very easy to get the tension correct, very easy to just make it really nice and smooth. And yeah, this machine is really, really simple. I made a prediction in my previous Atomstack video that I think laser engravers of this type are going to be extremely popular in the in the next few years, and are going to come down in price. And I see that is already happening. And I definitely think that's going to be the trend. These are simple machines. Obviously, the laser modules aren't simple, at least not as simple as hot ends on a 3D printer, for example. But the rest of the machine is just extremely simple. And this one in particular is really high quality, just like its bigger brother. All the extrusions are really nice. It's all painted. All the textures feel good if you're into that type of thing. It just feels like a really nice machine. So if you're spending, just under $500 on these things, it does make it feel at least like you bought something that's worth that much. But we all know that that's not what matters. We all know the performance of this thing is what matters. And so far, just taking a look at everything's exactly the same like the other one. And I do think that this one is more in line with what and how I would use it in terms of size. The other one's just significantly bigger, barely even fit on this table. So I think this is just a lot more in line of what I will personally use it for. So what we're going to do is we're going to load up Lightburn. I just got it. I've never used it before, so I'm going to mess with it a little bit and get to know, the ins and outs of that software. Then we'll load up some files and we're going to go ahead and engrave and cut some things and see how this little guy performs. I also wanted to mention these little stackable units here. I really like the design here. You can lift this thing up in various ways. If you put it in this way, this part holds the wider area. If you rotate it this way, this part holds the skinnier area, and then the fine line holds the legs. So there's lots of different ways you can lift this thing up above the object that you're trying to engrave, and I think that's clever, simple, and I like that they're included and it's not just another thing that you have to purchase or figure out, because with most other engravers you do have to figure out the foot situation, and a lot of times they cost quite a bit more actually. Yeah, I'm excited to get this started, so let's engrave some things. Lasers, let's do it. Alright, see you in a second. So here we are in my garage. Not the best view ever, not the most comfortable spot to film in, but you know what, I'm dedicated to the craft, so here we are. I have my material sitting right here, and one of my favorite things about this little guy is that it sits on top really nicely. It's very easy to get it level, whereas the X7 with a big sheet like this, I had to kind of lift it up and make sure it's even. But I like the fact that this kind of sits on top. I'm not using any of these little stacks for this particular project. But here we have this board that this is sitting on, and we're going to get one of these. So what I'm going to do at first is I'm just going to move this manually to roughly the spot that we need it in. I will set this little piece underneath, and that little piece of acrylic is going to be how we level this laser. So I'm going to set it down on top of that lightly. I'm going to clamp down, and then we can remove this little acrylic piece, and now we have the perfect amount of space. I believe it's 2 millimeters underneath of that laser, so it should be focused to what we're doing. And it actually looks like it's a little bit too tight, so I'm going to undo this again, set it down on top real light, and then clamp it down. See, when I clamp it down, it kind of pushes down a little bit. There we go. So let's see. Yep, that's much easier to take away. There we go. So that should be a good gap for that. So it's very easy to do. Then we have our file. I made a little test file. I'll have it down in the description below. And I already put it on the SD card right there. So let me see if I can show you how this is done. Alright, let's focus on the screen. Alright, so we're going to hit carve. We're going to find our file. This one's called 3D Print SOS Engraving and Cut Test. And here we go. We have a bunch of options. The blue light turned on the laser. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the laser, and you can actually see the little pinpoint right there in a certain spot. I'm going to bring it in. That was a little too far forward. I'm going to bring it into where I want it to start. So I want it to start somewhere in this area just so I don't have a bunch of extra material. Let's go right there. And what I'm going to do on this screen is I'm going to hit this button, position. And what that's going to do is it's going to set that point as the starting point for our test file. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit frame. And what this is going to do is it's going to move the perimeter of our cut file. And this is how we're going to find out if I have enough material, if it's positioned in the right spot, like if you're trying to center it on a small piece of something. And this is just going to go around the perimeter of the entire file and show us where it's going to end up. So far that's looking exactly where we want it, so I just want to make sure that's okay. I see it says running on the screen, so we're just waiting. Alright, there we go. So we are ready to cut. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit this play button. It's asking how many passes. Definitely want to do one, and in some situations you'd want to do it manually like this, do several in case it didn't cut through a file or something like that. This is definitely for simpler ones. This one, this test file is going to go through a lot of different cuts, different variations in speed and power, so I definitely just wanted to do one. So I'm just going to hit yes, and there it goes. The laser is going to start. I can just use the magnet to put that where it needs to go, and we are going to let it do its thing. Alright, there's going to be some smoke. I have the garage door open because of that. And I actually want to mention that this does have a fan that's blowing down that seems to be a little bit more powerful than the X7 was, which is kind of cool. Alright, I'll see you guys after this cut. So it looks like our testing is complete. File is print done, it says. Alright, so we will hit OK, and now we can freely move this out of the way. Alright, so this is a perfect example of why we do tests like this with laser engravers. So the whole point of this is it shows you the power going in this direction, and the speed and going in this direction, faster going down and more powerful going to the right. And you can see right around here is when typically on these tests, these blocks even tend to catch fire sometimes. Obviously not all the way to burn, but they do have a lot of soot in this direction. So this particular test instead tries to cut through in this area. But you can see this is already a little bit too hot for this particular material with this particular laser, and you can see it's not as accurate and it has some soot built up all over the place. So if I was to just want to engrave something, you can kind of look at the depth of how far all this goes, and I would say somewhere in this area is probably the best. So this looks like about 50% at 1,000 millimeters per minute would probably be the best for this particular material. Now, if you look on the back, you can tell I had to kind of rip this out. I don't know if you can tell from this angle. You can see there. So it didn't cut all the way through, which means I would do 2 passes on this particular material to cut something out, and then it would be perfectly fine. It was actually almost there. So maybe just slowing it down just a hair on the perimeter there would be enough for this test. Alright, I got another test done, and this one is updated. I added some more information about the cut settings so that you know. I added a fan sitting off to the right there just to get some more smoke out of the garage. But basically this test cut significantly better. It did better in some spots. As you can see on the bottom there was still some fraying. But at 100 millimeters per minute at 100% power, we are almost cutting all the way through. As you can see, just a hair. I bet if I push on this thing will fall out. So what that tells me is I can reduce the power to somewhere around here or even here and do 2 passes on a cut, and for this particular material it will fall right out. So definitely useful. I'll have the file down in the description below, so you guys can just put this on your SD card with this machine or anything that uses that laser module, and you should be able to just use this on whatever material you're trying to test on, and get a better idea, a better understanding of what settings to cut and engrave with. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and apply some of these settings to something we could use, and we'll cut it out. I'll see you here in a second. Just a quick update. I just walked inside here, and I noticed with my finger I could push it. So if we just push enough, yep, falls right out. So 100-100 for this particular material can be cut in one pass. Good to know. Alright guys, there it is, the P9 M50. I've had this thing going for about 4 days now, so I don't have a full review in detail that I can give, but I can say this thing is extremely similar to the X7, which I've had for many months now, but the only main difference here is just the size. The laser itself, the way that you set everything up in Lightburn, everything is exactly the same. It feels the same, it works the same. It's the same, it's just smaller. So if you're like me and you don't have a ton of space, you don't want to lug that thing around, or you don't have a designated area for lasers, but you still want to do projects like this and have fun with laser engraving, this might be the perfect machine. I can put this thing away, I can stow it, I can hang it, I can put it in the original box because it's so easy to disassemble and reassemble. There's no alignment, you know, it's very easy to do in that sense. So I definitely prefer, me personally at least, I definitely prefer this particular machine over its bigger brother, the X7, although the bigger brother can be even expanded even further. So I definitely think they both belong, especially because they're so capable for such a small amount of real estate that they both technically take up over something like a big desktop CO2 machine or something, or something even more powerful than that. I think it's a great hobby level engraver and even cutter in most cases. My only personal bummer, well, there's two bummers. One is kind of just because it's a diode laser, is I can't do clear or transparent acrylic. I bought a ton thinking I could do it even with the old machine, and you just can't because the laser goes right through it, and because it just goes right through, it can't cut or engrave it. It just doesn't work. With glass, just like I did in the X7 video, check that out up here, I ended up spray painting a piece of glass and then engraving in reverse over top of that, and then using a razor blade to clear off the spray paint, and that worked perfectly to etch glass. But you can't do that with acrylic because you wouldn't be able to use a razor blade on the acrylic afterwards, so you would just have black acrylic. It would kind of defeat the whole purpose. So that's kind of a bummer. I wish there was some sneaky way to do it, and maybe there's some tricks, and if you guys know how to do it, let me know down in the comments below. I would really love to do a bunch of acrylic based projects with laser engravers like this. The second thing is the same exact problem as the X7, and that's this knob. The knob that you use to set the height for the actual laser itself, all it is a bolt that goes all the way straight through, and that bolt just pushes up against the piece of aluminum. That's how it holds this entire assembly upward. I think it cheapens the entire thing because it's not very precise. Not that it needs to be, but for example, if I put this little piece to align everything down like that, you go ahead and tighten it, and now I can't pull this piece out, because when you tighten this bolt, it just goes into the aluminum and it kind of like tweaks itself a little bit, and it doesn't sit perfectly flat. That kind of thing, you know, that's my only gripe. I think there's actually a ton of different fixes, like on Thingiverse, that you can 3D print or even laser engrave pieces that help you align this thing so much easier and better. There's knobs and there's a lot you can do, but you shouldn't have to fix it out of the box. You know what I mean? So that's kind of my only gripe. Everything else about it is awesome. This particular size in my situation, I feel is so much better. I can put this thing on top of the material I'm working on and just have it engrave. Whereas the bigger machine, you have to put the material kind of like into the machine and have it engrave, if that makes sense. Obviously, you can lift it up too. You know, there's stilts and stuff just like this one that you can purchase for the other machine, but this one comes with them. And I just feel like this thing is so light and small. I personally prefer this one. I think it's just easier for me to manipulate, and the fact that it still has the same diode laser on it, the same amount of power. This machine is more along the lines of what I'm personally interested in. But I would love to hear from you if you guys are interested to see more laser engraving projects on this channel, because I have actually been turning down a bunch of different companies that have been trying to showcase their machines on the channel, because you know, it's a 3D print focused channel. But I think these things definitely go hand in hand. The machines are really similar in construction. They work in a very similar way, obviously outside of it being a laser and one being additive and one subtracting. I understand, but the mechanics of it is really similar. I do think they go hand in hand. I do think the people that are interested in 3D printing would also be interested in laser engraving. But I'd love to hear from you. Would you like to see more of this type of thing on the channel? Definitely let me know down in the comments below. But let's talk about the couple things that I've done so far. The engraving and cutting test, I'll have that down in the description as well. You can get a link for it. This thing is really, really handy. Now, definitely be careful using this. Be there while this is engraving this test, because different materials will react to it differently. And if you have something like this thin balsa wood, for example, that I just purchased, it's going to behave differently with this particular engraver. Definitely be there when you guys are doing the test. But when you get through the test, as you can see, like I mentioned, you'll be able to know exactly what speeds and what power to cut, at what speeds and what power to engrave. Very, very useful little tool, and then you just keep it around. And whenever you're using that material, you can just take a peek, and you have all the settings that you need. So using this, I set up this. As you guys saw, this is a Magic the Gathering life counter, and I just thought this thing was so neat. You can find files of this down in the description below, although I can't post the actual files that I used. I'm sure you can find them somewhere, just like I did, to add onto the gears and onto the back here, but this stuff you can't share because it's an intellectual property. But the actual file for the actual SVG for the gears and everything is readily available. You could find it. These things are really addicting. Not only are they useful and really cool, they make a cool little fidget, you know, for your desktop. The other thing I did was, it's Mother's Day weekend, and my wife is obsessed with gnomes, and I thought this was really neat. I went into Illustrator, made a bunch of SVGs, you know, and I designed this little piece, measured out some little pegs, and attached everything with CA glue. The gnomes themselves took about 2 hours, and the other two pieces took like 10 to carve out and to etch. And it just, you know, it's a fun little project, a quick and easy thing to do. And it doesn't take, you know, the most crazy advanced skills. You don't need to level anything or figure it out. It's just fun. It's a fun tool to have and a fun tool to know how to use, and that's why I really like it. And yeah, I think this machine is just really neat. Alright guys, if you have any questions about any more laser stuff, let me know down in the description below. Other than that, check out the Patreon for this channel. You guys see videos early, have conversations with me directly, and you help out the channel greatly. So thank you everyone from the Patreon. Also check out our Discord, great place to share your prints, you know, discover new things to print, troubleshoot your 3D printers, talk about things like this, or just talk, you know, to like-minded people, have a chat. Lots of people in there, lots of people helping out. Thank you to everybody in the Discord. Great community we're building there. I love it. Alright guys, as always, I'll see you all in the comments. Later.